Hey guys, welcome back. We are back for the afternoon session. I'm going to put you guys on mute, and as soon as they get started, we will jump on in. So um, we'll see you, and I'll chime in a little bit. Hey India. Let me see who else is here. I'm putting my glasses on. Hey India, what's going on? We're back. I think we're still a little bit early, but that's okay. Early bird catches the worm, right? Um, I better send out a notification. I don't know why it's not even tracking that you're even here. Hold on one second. I'm gonna make sure. Hey Ashanti. Hey Nesh Kayla. Hello everyone. It's still saying 0. So let me it's weird. Y'all, Portia is having a fit. I'm telling you, it's like freaking doggy daycare. Oh, well, it shows that there's 17. So I see you guys now. For some reason it's not tracking on StreamYard, but that's okay. Just as long as I know you guys are here. So thank you for everyone who's come in and hit the like button so far. If you haven't hit the like button yet, please feel free to do so. I certainly appreciate it. But yeah, everything is still kind of on hold. And we're just waiting for them to get back started. This is my prediction for the afternoon session. Buckle up, because I think this is obviously. I think I think the state wants to probably give the people, the jury, something to think about for the weekend, and I think that he's probably going to let them have Alex back today. I doubt it would go over the weekend unless they end it on like a cliffhanger and then come back to Monday. But Alex will be back probably Monday anyway, just because his attorneys will have a chance to kind of clean up the mess. So we don't really know what's going to happen. But if they're able to end early enough, then his attorneys would have a chance to kind of button things up. Because remember, there's the 2 witnesses. I apologize, my dog's barking. There are those 2 witnesses that Alex's attorneys were concerned about because there's some financial, concerns. Meanwhile, it's like, look, your client, girl, like at the end of the day, like this is part of your budget, okay? Anywho, so there's those 2 witnesses that they asked about yesterday at the end. And Nicole, I see you. Cece, Ashanti, thank you everyone for coming in. So my prediction is that they should finish up today. So that's no big like prediction, but I think it's going to be a bumpy road. I think he has Alex right where he wants him, at the scene, lying. We know that the state has made a kind of, even though it seems like a hodgepodge of things, I think what they're trying to do is establish that when the going gets tough, Alex gets lying, right? And every time there's a situation that doesn't fit him or the story he's trying to tell, he'll change the story. So he had his initial story that failed. He had another story. He's at the kennel. He's at the kennel. He's not at the kennel now. He's at the kennel. He admitted to lying. He touched the bodies. He didn't touch the bodies. Like Alex is, and then he said that, he doesn't think out his lies. He just lied, basically. So what does that even mean? That you just lie on the fly. Isn't that what the lawyer said? So pretty interesting. Hi, Bougie Gang watch party. Absolutely. You know what? We could have a watch party on Netflix. I think they just started doing that. I saw something about setting up a watch party. So I don't know that I can broadcast it, but it might be something that like to watch one of the episodes that I could set up a watch party. So if that's something that any of you guys might want to do, I haven't watched the Netflix episode yet. So if that's something you guys think you want to do, maybe we can do it on like Sunday or something. And I'll just drop the link, and whoever, I don't know how many people can get into it, but we'll find out. Anyway, looks like they're getting ready to come back into session. And yeah, so I'll be back. Oh, I'm like, I can't hear anything, but I didn't have my headphones on.
Griffin, you wanted to put something on the record?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. During cross-examination of Mr. Murdaugh, he had testified that in relation to the financial crimes, that he had tried to meet with the Attorney General's office, and that on multiple occasions, and that he had, from the get-go, had always been willing to sit down with them. He was specifically talking about the financial investigation and the charges which he received as a result of those investigations. Following up to that questioning, that answer, Mr. Waters then went to Mr. Murdaugh's testimony and the information he provided about being down at the kennel. And he said you had never provided that information to law enforcement and other people until today or yesterday. And Your Honor, that is a direct violation of Dole v. Ohio, where the Supreme Court said that cross-examining the defendant about his failure to have told an exculpatory story after receiving Miranda warnings at the time of his arrest is a due process violation. The court goes on to say the defendant's post-arrest silence cannot be used against him, violates due process. And that's exactly what happened on cross-examination. So I want to make clear the grounds for objection. Also would like to move to strike the question, strike the answer, and get a curative jury instruction that they are not to consider any failure of the defendant to come forward with exculpatory information after his arrest relating to the murder charges. Thank you.
Mr. Waters.
Yes, sir, Your Honor. Clearly, this defendant has given statements on multiple occasions, and that operates as a waiver under Doyle. Additionally, my question was not so limited as Mr. Griffin says, and it was, in fact, the defendant who made a point of saying that he had repeatedly tried to talk and put that in issue, at which point this was directly responsive to what he brought up. Additionally, this was also, all that was discussed were public statements of his counsel, who was an agent on his behalf and attributable to him. So there's no Doyle violation here. If Mr. Murdaugh had claimed his right to silence from the beginning and had kept that throughout, then the state would be precluded from commenting on the exercise of his right to remain silent. But one thing we know about Mr. Murdaugh is he has not remained silent at any point during this process, and he's the one that brought up this false claim that he had been begging to tell the kennel story, when in fact he did not do so till yesterday.
And
Doyle primarily addresses the issue of post-arrest silence. If an accused is silent following an arrest, then it's improper to comment on the post-arrest silence. It does not allow an accused or a person who's suspected to give contradictory information or to voluntarily give a statement or to voluntarily give a misstatement, as has been acknowledged here. I do not find any Doyle violation, and the record is protected. I certainly understand the defense raising any and all possible issues, and they can be raised, and you've done it here. The record is protected, but all motions are denied.
Bloop.
Let's bring the jury.
Y'all see his son back there? I'm circling his head right now.
Jury is present, sir.
Very good. You may proceed.
May it please the court, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Murdaugh, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Give that mic up a little bit, please.
Excuse me.
Thank you.
There we go.
When we left off, we were talking about at what point during that interview in the car with Dave Owen that you decided to start lying about the murders of your wife and son. I'm going to pick up this video real quick. Not going to play the whole thing, but I'm going to start from 2 minutes and 9 seconds.
So, just start the talk, take your time.
Like when I came back here,
Mhm.
I mean, I pulled up and I could see him, and I knew something was bad. I ran out. I knew it was really bad. And my boy over there, I could see it was. And I could see his brain on. And I ran over to Maggie. And actually, I think I tried to turn Paul over first. I tried to turn him over, and I don't know. I figured it out. His cell phone popped out of his pocket. I started to try to do something with it, thinking maybe, but then I put it back down really quickly. Then I went to my wife, and I could see.
Mhm. Did you touch Maggie at all?
I did. I touched them both.
Okay.
I tried to do it as limited as possible, but I tried to take their pulse on both of them.
Mhm.
And, I called 911 pretty much right away. And she was very good. I talked to her. I told her I was going to get off the phone to call some family members. I did that.
How many family members did you call?
I called my brother Randy, and I called my brother John, and I tried to call a little boy, real good friend that's right around the corner from here, but I didn't get him.
What all was around Paul when you walked up?
Blood.
Anything else?
I mean, there was some body
Mhm.
things, yes, sir.
I mean, like any other evidence? I know you said the phone fell out of the pocket, but did you see anything else that didn't belong or shouldn't belong or that wasn't part of Paul?
No, sir, not. No, sir.
How about Maggie?
No, sir.
You didn't see anything around them? What made you come out here tonight?
I went to, my mom's a late stage Alzheimer's patient. My dad's in the hospital. My mom gets anxious when she does. I went to check on them and Maggie. Maggie's a dog lover. She fools with the dogs. And I knew she'd gone to the kennel. I was at the house.
Just to be clear, you say you hadn't made the conscious decision to start lying about your wife and son's murder right there, correct?
I don't believe so.
Okay, let's continue on.
Mr. Waters, I can't tell you exactly when that decision occurred.
You can't describe to the jury the moment you decided to lie about your wife and son's murder?
I can't tell you exactly when that moment occurred.
I left the house and went.
You did say earlier that when David Owen asked you about your relationships, that was a trigger point, correct?
Well, that was certainly one of the things that contributed or made me paranoid.
Okay.
Now, you know, there were already things that had gone on that occurred, as I said, that put me in that mindset.
Yeah.
But exactly when I decided to lie about that, I can't tell you.
So the things again, you talked about your dope paranoia, the fact they'd taken GSR, and you talked about the advice of your law partners and Sheriff Hill and Greg Alexander, and then you talked about your distrust of SLED somehow from the circumstances and demeanor of this interview right here, correct?
No, my distrust from SLED didn't arise from this interview. My distrust for SLED arose from a couple of things, and it's really several things. It arose from the way they had been involved in, SLED had been involved in the investigation into Paul's criminal charges, and they had been involved in, there was an issue that had gone on with some rumors about Buster and Paul. They had been involved in that, where, you know, Buster nor Paul had anything to do with what I'm talking about. And SLED never said that, even though they told their lawyer that. They never say that. And there had been another incident where SLED had charged Greg Alexander, my friend in this case. They charged him. And in fact, I thought the agent that was involved in that was David Owen, but the charges against Greg Alexander were so, they were so wrong that my dad and I made a conscious decision, even though he was a career prosecutor, made a decision to go to the courthouse and sit with Greg Alexander while his trial went on, because
This was like 10 years ago, right?
it was a while back,
Yeah.
you know? But
You don't know if Dave Owen was at SLED 10 years ago.
no, I checked on that, because that night, the officer who was involved in that case in bringing clearly manufactured charges against Greg Alexander.
You're saying the night before you sat down for this interview, you were asking somebody about whether or not something about Greg Alexander 10 years ago in the wake of what had occurred?
Oh, no, I didn't ask anybody.
Okay, so that wasn't what you were discussing when you were sitting in this car.
No, I wasn't discussing that. I'm just telling you that I thought David Owen was the same agent that was involved in that case. Now, I learned later, because I checked on it, I learned later that it was a different David, SLED agent, first name David with a different last name. I learned that later. I'm just saying that was all part of that process going on in my mind.
So you're saying that you're sitting here right now thinking that this Dave Owen and this circumstances and demeanor of this interview, you're thinking that guy had been involved in the prosecution or investigation of your friend 10 years ago.
I did.
Okay, so here's a new one you just mentioned to us, correct?
No, that's not a new one.
Okay.
That's part of,
I mean, the circumstances are new. I mean,
No,
that's fairly
no.
specific, don't you think?
well, no, sir.
I mean, the story keeps evolving. Keep going. Keep
No,
going.
you asked me about this, Mr. Owen. What I said is part of this whole, I mean, Mr. Waters, part of this whole process involved my distrust for SLED. That was a big part of my distrust for SLED.
Yeah, we can all see it on your face in this interview, can't we?
I don't know.
But you said what you just said a little bit ago, that wasn't the lie. That wasn't a conscious decision yet. So let's keep going.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying I don't believe that it was. I don't
Okay.
know exactly when
All right.
I made the decision to lie about that.
All right.
All right?
Well, if you see it, let me know, okay? We'll go forward.
To my mom's for just a little while. Tried to call her when I left. Texted her, no response. when I got back to the house was obviously nobody was in there. So I figured they're still up here fooling around. Paul was gonna be getting set up to plant. Our sunflower seeds got sprayed and died, and he was refiguring to plant the sunflower seeds. So I came back up here and drove up and saw and called.
Had Maggie and Paul been arguing over anything?
No.
What was their relationship like?
Wonderful.
Wonderful. How about yours and Maggie's?
Wonderful. I mean, I'm sure we had little things here and there, but we had a wonderful marriage, wonderful relationship.
And yours and Paul's relationship?
As good as it could be.
How old was Paul?
22.
Okay.
So that was the moment, right there, that line of questioning, just asking some very general questions about your relationship. You mentioned that before, didn't you, Mr. Murdaugh? Is that the moment right there? Is that the look on your face when you decide to lie about an important fact in your wife and son's murder?
I don't know, as I said, Mr. Waters, I don't know the exact point that I made that decision.
You specifically earlier mentioned that very exchange is somehow triggering you to lie about the last time you saw them alive.
No, I'm not saying that that's what made me lie. I'm saying this whole set of circumstances caused me to be in a state where I had paranoid thoughts.
Okay.
That normally, Mr. Waters, I could take a deep breath and make go away in a second or 2 seconds or 3 seconds at the most. And on this night, I wasn't able to do that. But all of those things that I mentioned, I believe contributed to that.
Okay. Any more you want to add now, since you keep adding them?
I'd be glad to answer any question you have.
Well, I mean, I'm asking you. I mean, the factors have gone from yesterday to today, and now even after lunch, we got some new ones. So anything else you want to add right now as to factors?
Mr. Waters, I don't believe that I've added any new factors. I believe that's what I said yesterday.
All right.
I've explained some of those factors because of your questions, but I don't believe I've added any factors.
Okay. All right, let me move this forward just a little bit.
Okay, so most of this was stuff from a couple of them, but not.
You talked about yesterday in great detail about the boat case, which you brought up on the 911 call and to Daniel Green, and then of course in this first interview, correct?
I did mention the boat wreck.
All right, and you described that. Do you remember what you said in this interview about the boat wreck?
Not
About
specifically.
specifically the other people involved in the boat wreck? You don't remember specifically? Do you remember specifically? I guess you said no.
I remember talking about the boat wreck, and I
Don't
know
know
that I talked about the boat wreck.
All right. Well, I'm gonna play now from 1714.
any direct threats between any of the people on the boat
Okay.
specifically, but I do think there's been a small amount of yip yap between a couple of them, but not recently.
Okay.
What was the term you used for that? A small amount of yip yap?
Yeah, and just to be clear, Mr. Waters, there was never, ever a point in time where I thought that the people that were involved in the boat wreck did this to Paul and Maggie.
Okay.
I've never thought that.
All right. I never thought that, but it's literally one of the first things that you said out of the 911 call.
Nah, that's not what I said. I never, ever, ever under any point in time believed that those kids that were riding in that boat or their parents or
Or their
their,
parents.
or their families. I didn't believe that any of the families, the people that were involved in the boat wreck had anything to do with hurting Maggie and Paul.
Okay.
But I can tell you that at that time, and as I sit here today, that I believe that boat wreck is the reason why Paul and Maggie were killed.
Okay.
And I'm certain,
So
I believe
it was,
that.
It was random vigilantes, the 5-2 vigilantes, huh?
now what I believe, Mr. Waters, is I believe that when Paul was charged criminally, there were so many leaks, half-truths, half-reports, half-statements, partial information, misrepresentations of Paul that ended up in the media all the time. And when I tell you the social media response that came from that was vile, the things that were said about what they would do to Paul, they were so over the top that nobody would believe anybody would get on social media and do that. But I believe then, and I believe today, that the wrong person saw and read that.
Okay.
Because I can tell you for a fact that the person or people who did what I saw on June the 7th, they hated Paul Murdaugh and they had anger in their heart. And that is the only reason that somebody could be mad at Paul like that and hate him like that.
Gotcha. All right, so we've got now.
But that's why I did then believe it was the boat wreck, and I believe now that the boat wreck
All right, so we've
had
got
something to do with it.
All right, so we've got random vigilantes because of the boat wreck.
Now, I don't know that they're random vigilantes.
Well, you just said it wasn't the family or the kid or
No.
the kids or the family of the other kids in the boat, right?
But
So you're saying it's somebody off of social media, and you don't have any evidence of that, do you?
not
You
to-
just believe that. You're just telling that jury that as you try to explain the lie that you told for the first time yesterday. Isn't that right?
no, sir, that's not right.
It's not right. All right. Well, let me ask you a question then. So what you're telling this jury is that it's a random vigilante,
That's
the
your
12-year-old, the 12-year-old 5-2 people that just happened to know that Paul and Maggie were both at Moselle on June 7th, that knew that they would be at the kennels alone on June the 7th, that knew that you would not be there, but only between the times of 8:49 and 9:02, that they show up without a weapon, assuming that they're going to find weapons and ammunition there, that they commit this crime during that short time window, and then they travel the same exact route that you do around the same time to Alameda. That's what you're trying to tell this jury?
You got a lot of factors in there, Mr. Waters, all of which I do not agree with, but some of which I do.
All right. You testified earlier that after this happened, well, let me back up just real quick. When you were driving to and from Alameda, why were you in such a hurry? Why are you rolling 70, 80 miles an hour down that dark, beat up road?
I wasn't in such a hurry.
You weren't?
No, sir.
All right. Show you what's been marked as States 573. See if you recognize this.
I do.
And tell the jury what that is.
It's Mac's car,
All right. And what's it in front of?
the house at Moselle,
And what's between the house and the Mercedes?
the golf cart.
Is that where it was on June the 8th, to your recollection?
No, sir.
Where was it left?
I mean, it was near there, but that's not exactly where it was. No, sir.
Okay, where was it?
Where we would normally park it would be a little bit closer to the shed. I mean, a little bit closer to the house, to the bushes.
Your Honor, this,
When was that photograph taken?
well, do you recognize when it was taken?
No, I don't recognize. No,
You
sir.
wouldn't dispute that it was around the time in the aftermath of the murders, would you?
Aftermath being when?
I'm asking you.
A day, a week, an hour?
I wasn't there, Mr. Murdaugh. Do you recognize those?
I recognize the car, I recognize the house, and I recognize the golf cart. But that is not, that's not exactly how it would have been
All right.
that night.
Can you describe to me then where it would be different?
Well, it would be more in line with, first things first is when we drove the golf cart, or when I drove it for sure, and I believe when the others drove it, you would come in and you would go across the little brick walkway that's in front of this. So if I would have come in and gone this way, or I would have come in and gone this way. This is not a place that any of my family would have normally parked it. And so what I'm assuming is this obviously is taken at daytime. And what I'm assuming is it was taken when SLED came to the earliest it was taken was when SLED came to the house the next day, which I believe the testimony is in the afternoon. And at this point in time, that golf cart, I would assume would have been moved several times, but that's
Right.
not how it was.
Well, where did you leave the golf cart when you got out of it around 8:49?
In the manner in which I just talked about.
Okay, well, help me out again so I understand. You would have come around this way or that way, but where was it? Where would it end
It would have
up?
been, in this picture is facing to the right.
Oh, I got you.
The night that I drove it, I believe I parked it facing to the left.
I understand.
Would be customarily how I did it. And I believe I did it that way that night.
Okay. Well, that's all right.
And that is how I would have gotten into it.
All right. That's a very specific memory. Thank you. All right. At this
Well, that's
time,
just
the
how it
state would
normally
offer States 573 and evidence.
Admit it without objection.
Could I have the Omo very briefly?
And see, Mr. Waters, you can see in the picture now that you bring this up on screen, if you look to the right, you can see the actual steps. And just to the left of that would be where the little brick patio starts. So where I would normally park it, you would roll across those bricks and the end of the golf cart would be just past those. And we all normally parked it that way because the way you charge this golf cart is if you see that back seat that's sitting, you can see the edge. This is a 3-seat golf cart and you can see the back seat. And a lot of golf carts have the charger this sits on the floor or something. This golf cart has a charger that's plugged in and a part of the golf cart. So you flip that seat up and it plugs in. And the outlets are right up there by the door.
Okay. Anything else you want to say about that?
I'm going to answer any questions you have, Mr. Waters.
No. Well, I appreciate all that information in great detail. Jay, you did a comment.
Sustained.
All right.
It's just never parked that way by the family.
Have the computer back, please. That's up. Mr. Murdaugh, I'm going to put up the second interview. This would have been June the 10th. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I do want to go through a couple of things with you, okay?
Anything you want to go through, Mr. Waters?
I apologize. Got ahead of myself. I want to do one last thing on the first one. For the record, I'm going to start it.
I forget the guy's name.
I'm going to start it at 23:55. This is the first interview.
Amy's been having trouble with her. She's been having trouble with her stomach and her tooth. I'm not positive. It was sort of a routine visit, and I can't remember. She told me the name of him, and I can't. I want to say Gordine
Okay.
is who I think she saw.
So was she back home around supper time? Or 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock?
I don't think she got back quite that early. I think she got back a little bit later than that.
Okay. What did you do today? Were you in the office or?
No, I was home. I came home. Paul and I messed around. I was up at the house. I laid down, took a nap on the couch, probably, I don't know, 25, 30 minutes. I got up, I called Maggie, didn't get an answer, and I left to go to my mom's. She had said she might ride with me, but she normally doesn't when I go over there. And I think I texted her.
There, when you repeated the lie that you decided?
Was that the moment that I
Was that the
decided
moment you
that?
decided to lie to mean old Dave Owen?
I don't know. As I told you, Mr. Waters, the exact moment that I decided to lie, but at that point in time,
But you did lie
Obviously.
there, correct?
I did.
And she's very good about answering the phone, so that was odd, or calling me back. So that was odd, but it wasn't that big a deal.
All right, I'm gonna go to the second interview. It's been previously admitted. Let me ask you this before we start. You stated earlier during your direct testimony that after these crimes happened, you were around family, family was around you, your law partners were around you pretty much every minute after that, correct? Every waking minute. Didn't you say that yesterday?
Yes, they were for a long time.
All right. And this second interview was 3 days later, is that right?
That's correct.
And in no time with any of your close friends and law partners and family, do you confess the truth? Do you?
No, I did not.
Do you say, hey, man, I think I messed up. What should I do about this?
No, I didn't.
You're not telling that lie to anyone, are you? Until yesterday.
Excuse me?
You're not telling that lie to anyone until yesterday, are you?
Not telling what lies? Saying I tried to tell somebody that I was lying?
All right.
Hang up.
So is that. And
All right, I'm going to move this to approximately 24:56.
went to go to the red thing, getting
All right. Correction, I'm at 12:28.
him, he doesn't like to go to doctors, making him go get his blood pressure checked. His feet had swollen up recently.
Wow.
So, that was, it was a big, huge deal.
Okay.
We hung around the house for a little while. I know that Maggie went to the kennels. I don't know exactly where Paul went, but he left the house too.
Okay. How did Maggie get down to the kennels?
I don't know exactly, but on normal occasions, she would drive a buggy, drive a four-wheeler, or very common for her to walk.
Okay. How about Paul?
Paul wasn't much of a walker, but he would use all of the others.
Okay.
But it could be anyway, I don't know exactly. I wish I could help you with that.
So they left and went down to the kennels.
Well, Maggie went to go to the kennels.
Okay. Paul left.
And I'm assuming Paul left because of,
Gotcha.
what happened. I'm assuming Paul went to the kennels.
Okay. And what did you do once Maggie and Paul left?
I stayed in the house.
Okay.
And I was watching TV, looking at my phone, and I actually fell asleep on the couch.
Okay. And what time did you?
I don't know exactly what time I woke up, but when y'all get my phone, I think one of the first things I did when I got up was call Maggie because I was going to my mom's. And I know I texted her because I checked my phone. And what time did we say the text was, Jim? It's like 9:06.
I didn't see it. Yeah, I got it written down for the other
I showed you the other night, didn't I?
Yes, sir. I got it.
So, I texted her. So I called her just before that. And she didn't answer at that point. And I left to go to my mom's.
Okay.
Y'all will just have to look. I'm not sure if I called Paul.
Well, and that's why we're getting the phone so we can nail down the times and everything.
Pretty much all of that was lies, wasn't it?
The part about me not being at the kennel was a lie.
Well, also not knowing that Paul went down there, not being sure, that was a lie too, wasn't it? You're putting some detail on this thing, aren't you?
Not knowing when Paul left. Everything about me not going to the kennel was a lie.
And you're able to just do that just so easily and so convincingly and so naturally, don't you?
That's not for me to judge.
That's true.
It's an odd story.
can get to where I'm going.
Feel right now.
So do y'all have any good clues?
So we're trying to put a rush on that to get an answer quick, and hoping that's going to tell us something.
By evidence, I mean, is it things you think are gonna be helpful?
Well, I mean, like the shot shells out there, the casings, the DNA swabs that we took from the door handle to see if anybody touched the door handles, any other places that we think somebody may have touched while they were out there. We're trying to collect DNA from that and analyze that. Which at the conclusion of this, what I'm going to also ask is that we get a buccal swab, the DNA swab from you. Your DNA is going to be there, but we need to eliminate it once it's developed.
We don't need
so-
that unknown
yeah.
when it actually is a family member. or
It's
you.
no problem.
I mean, we have talked to close to 100 people trying to track people down, and we're still tracking people down. And that's why, who Paul was with.
I wanna tell you one thing while I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
Paul was really an incredibly intuitive little dude.
Mhm.
And, I mean, he was like a little detective. And
He was like a little detective. Is that what you said?
That is what I said. And he was very intuitive, like I said.
And that was what Marion described as Maggie's term for how he was and keeping tabs on your pill usage. Wasn't that correct?
That was what Maggie said about him.
For some reason, you decided to bring that up in this interview, didn't you?
That was a trait of Paul's personality. I think anybody who knew him would tell you how intuitive he was.
Got it.
Going through hours of videos that we.
All right. For the record, I'm at 4630.
Going out and collected.
well, thank y'all
Yeah.
very much.
So.
Mr. Allen.
You don't have to call me miss. You just call
I'm
me
sorry.
Alec. Thank you for that courtesy.
When you and Paul got back in the house, Miss Maggie's there, and y'all eat supper, which has been prepared. And you said you laid down and took a little nap. And when you got up, Maggie and Paul was gone, or did they leave when you laid down?
I believe that I'm not sure.
But they weren't there when you woke up around the 9 o'clock mark or so when you made the call to Maggie to let her know you was going to.
No, nobody was in that house when I left.
So I'm just trying to narrow that. The last time that you saw Paul and Maggie is when y'all were eating supper.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Your answer was yes, sir. Is that correct?
That's correct.
about to go to the August 2021 interview, but between that June 10th interview and the August interview, you were not working very much. Is that correct? If at all?
No, I definitely wasn't working very much. I think I was working a little bit, but no, not very much at all.
Did you go to Johnny Parker to borrow $250,000 in order to cover the Ferris fees?
I did.
You did?
I did.
Did you tell him what that was for?
No, I did not tell him what that was for.
Did you go to Russell Lafitte at Palmetto State Bank and get $350,000 in order to help cover some of the Ferris fees that you had taken to send to Chris Wilson?
I did.
And did you get those fees before you signed any paperwork or documentation?
I've heard testimony about that in this case, but I can't tell you the specifics of that.
Okay. You don't recall that?
Do I recall when I signed paperwork? No, sir.
You don't recall that you got the money a month before you had to sign any paperwork?
No, sir, I don't recall that.
Call your phone being in the console, but you
I'm
don't
not
recall
disputing that, but I don't recall it.
Did you go to your best friend, Chris Wilson, and convince him to cover $192,000, the remaining $192,000, in order for him to send that email to your law firm as if those fees had been there all along?
I spoke to Chris Wilson and did not have the full amount of the fees. And I got Chris Wilson to put the remaining fees in his trust account.
And when you did that, you didn't tell him the truth about your life. You just asked him to cover you,
No, I
correct?
didn't. I did not tell him.
And he agreed to do that because of his belief of who you really were, or who he thought you were.
He agreed to do that for whatever reason. I assume that was a big part of it.
And once that $600,000 was transferred, Chris Wilson sent an email to you saying those fees had been there, were in his trust account, correct?
That is correct.
And then you forwarded that email to Lee Cope and Jeannie Seconder, correct?
I know I forwarded it to Jeannie, and I've heard that testimony about forwarding it to Lee Cope, so I believe that's correct.
It's like, why can't he just admit to something? Why can't he just say, yes, that's what happened? It's like,
Why did you not get it all from PSB?
Because at that time, there were limitations on how much I could borrow because MAGS was passed. And so I was limited.
everything, a lot of their
loan
assets
against
were in his wife's name, and
Roselle and had to get a loan.
oftentimes when they
against
got credit,
Palmetto State.
it was on both of
against,
their
uh,
names, and she had just passed away, and her assets, the estate was frozen. Therefore, he could not borrow anything against her name anymore.
Going to the third interview.
Life of Leisure and Live, Laugh, Love, I did park your questions over to the side, so when they go to a break, we'll talk about it. But yeah, I think that came from him having a law enforcement badge and him being part of the solicitor's office and him part of him having, that Murdaugh blood. They gave him privileges that people don't normally get as far as the interrogation room, but we'll talk more about it.
Apparently having some technical difficulties.
I'm going to be honest. I think he was mad with law enforcement because law enforcement was actually doing their job.
I've already
Um,
seen this, so, I mean,
and
again,
he's not
repeating the
used
same lies
to
over and over
people
again,
treating
I
him
did.
for
effortlessly and
his
convincingly.
illegal behavior.
I don't know about that.
Well, they can see it there.
Agree with that.
Nobody yelled at you.
Nobody yelled at me. Nobody, none of these guys were ever discourteous to me. Like
Nobody what?
I said, none of those guys were ever discourteous to me. You made a comment earlier that David Owens was mean or something about being mean, and he was never mean to me.
All right. But you decided to lie in part because you distrusted David Owen.
I distrusted SLED in general, and I particularly distrusted who I thought was David Owen at the time.
Okay.
Who turned out not to be David Owen.
So wait a minute, I want to be clear. You're saying now you thought that this was some David Owen that had something to do with Greg Alexander 10 years ago.
No, sir. And I'm not saying that now. I've said that all along.
Uh-huh.
The person that I saw and watched in Greg Alexander's trial that was clear to me was just, it was terrible what they did to Greg Alexander. And the person at SLED who was responsible for that was a guy named David. All right, and I'm not even getting into his last name. I thought that David Owens that night was that guy. Later, down the road, and it was a while, I checked into that and I found out that I was mistaken, that it was not
So
David Owens.
the night
We
that
went back,
you,
we spent a lot of time going through that first statement. You're
so the
telling me now
night
that
your
you were
wife
sitting there
and son are
thinking
killed, you
that
think the
this was a
person that you're
completely different guy
interacting
the whole
with
time,
is
and that was
someone
on your
who
mind
has
during
beef
that
with one of your
entire-
friends. So you had a damn attitude with him?
Yes, at the time,
What?
I thought that David Owen, no, I didn't think David Owen was a different person. I thought that David Owens was the person that my dad and I had watched. Just, and my dad and I truly thought evidence was
Yeah, you said that
manufactured,
part.
and I thought it was David Owen, and I was wrong about that. But that's what I thought that night.
Why? Your wife just got her, you know what I mean? I hate to say it, guys. I mean, this was a awful
I'm gonna
homicide.
answer any question you have,
No,
Mr.
no, I mean,
Waters.
let's, any more?
Do you have any more questions, sir?
No, I mean, any more about your decision to lie. I mean, I just want to, let's get it all out now.
If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them, sir.
All right, well, I do. Tell me about the
Awful.
replacement blackout. You initially told law enforcement that you weren't sure whether or not there was one, correct? Correct?
Oh, no, sir, you're absolutely wrong about that.
What did you say then?
Shortly after this, it became being told that Paul's gun had been stolen. And the one you heard talk about being stolen from the thing. And I'm not sure how I learned this, but I learned that somebody, I believe SLED had gone to John Bedingfield, who made those guns, and could only find paperwork for 2 blackouts, one of which they were saying was stolen in 17. And that's what they were telling me. And I was certain and told them that I was certain that there was a third one.
But initially, in June 8th and June 10th, or June 10th, you were saying that you thought that y'all had replaced it, and then you kind of wavered and then eventually said you did replace it, correct?
I don't believe that's correct. No,
You don't
sir.
believe that's correct?
No, I don't believe that's
Did you
correct.
say to law enforcement that you thought that the third gun, the replacement blackout, had gone missing in Christmas of 2020?
It did go missing in Christmas of 2020.
So you're telling them that one also had been missing 6 months prior, correct? Answer my question first, and then you can explain. Did you all tell law enforcement that that gun had been missing since Christmas time?
I told law enforcement that when we looked for it at Christmas time, we could not find it.
Okay.
And that was accurate. We looked for it when we were trying to shoot hogs, when we had a group of people out there, and we could not find it.
Okay. But you now know that it was there as late as turkey season.
I know, sir. I know that Will Love and Paw Paw had it right before turkey season, like Will Lovin testified to.
So it was around, actually.
It was around there at some point in time there, yes, sir.
So you're saying it got stolen a second time, or you just don't know?
No, I'm not.
The 12-year-old stole it a second time?
I never said a 12-year-old stole any gun, Mr.
Sorry, the
Waters.
5'2" people stole it a second time?
I don't know that it was stolen. I just know that when we looked for it at Christmas time, we couldn't find it. And I know this, I know that I hadn't seen that gun in a long time. I've heard the testimony that people who were at my house using guns and hunting with us all the time, Rogan, Buster, they didn't, I can't remember about Buster, but there were several people who didn't even know that gun had been replaced. So that tells me that that gun did not stay where our regular guns were. And I know that I didn't see it there. And that tells me that they didn't see it there.
Of course you didn't see it there, because it's got to be missing, right, Mr. Murdaugh?
Ask that
Yeah,
question
one more
again.
circumstance for your latest story to work is that it's got to be missing as well. It was when you told law enforcement it was missing at Christmas time. Now we've had testimony at this trial, and now you're still claiming that you never saw it. It must have been kept somewhere else. Where else would it have been kept?
It could have been kept anywhere, Mr. Waters, the way Paul did guns, the way guns were handled around there. I was terrible about that.
You're terrible about that.
I should have been stricter.
Oh God.
But you
Wouldn't
know
it
that
have
third gun was
had to
fired
been
right
someone
outside
then who like knew you guys? Like
No,
how
no,
would they
more
go and
in
just
turkey
find a
season,
gun on your
2021,
property? Hey Gig, how are you?
I know that now, based on what Will Lovin said.
And you know, it was also fired across the street at y'all's shooting house around that same time, don't you?
No, sir, I don't know that, but I know that I would assume that it was fired at the shooting range, but I don't have any reason to believe it was done in close proximity to that time.
A few months go by, a couple months go by, and you get confronted about your thefts from the law firm, correct?
September of 21.
And unlike June the 7th, when Jeannie confronted you, this time they had unassailable evidence, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, they had,
No wiggling out of this one, correct?
I didn't try to wiggle out of this one.
Well, you've been wiggling before, though, right? You wiggled when you stole your brother's money twice, correct?
Well, I admit almost all of these things, Mr. Waters, but that's one of the things that I take dispute with,
Which one?
that I stole that money that you're referring to.
You're going to dispute that? Let's hear about that then. Tell me why you dispute cashing that check twice.
I don't dispute cashing that check twice.
But you're going to tell this jury that you accidentally didn't realize that you were supposed to be receiving some $125,000 check, or $120 however $1,000 check, 2 times. How many $120,000 checks do you receive?
I got that check, and this is several months after. I mean, you can look at my finances and you can see how I was doing. I didn't balance a checkbook. But the fact of the matter is, when I got that check, I asked about it. And I was told mistakenly that it was for me, that I had participated in that year-end thing, which I did sometimes, not often, but sometimes. Apparently, a new check got cashed. I cashed that check. Then a year later,
where did you keep that one for a year?
I don't know where it was. It was obviously in my desk, but Mr. Waters,
So you found it in your desk.
no, I didn't find it.
Well, you say it was obviously in your desk. So you remember that? You remember finding it in your desk?
No, I remember when we,
Did you go to finance and say, I just found this year-old check? Is this right?
no,
No, you took it to the bank, didn't you?
no, sir, I didn't.
Not allowing Mr. Murdaugh to answer the question.
So when this came up, when this came up, that check got cashed. There's no way that I can have a check in our law firm with the way accounting is, and that I can cash a check twice and think that that's impossible. So to cash a check that's already been checked, it's going to throw, there's no question it's going to throw that off. What happened is we used to get a rent check, we get little checks, I'd have checks, and they pile up, the small checks. That check got mixed in and it got sent to the bank and it got deposited.
Keep going.
And that was a year after.
Okay.
But I do dispute that I stole that money. That money.
All right. Well, I mean, you brought it up. So any of the other money you dispute stealing?
No, sir, you brought it up. I was just telling you that was the one I disputed.
All right. And you heard Ronnie Crosby and Mark Ball testify about that, correct?
I heard Ronnie and Mark testify about what they thought about it. Yes, sir.
All right.
It's like nothing is his fault. So just a little backstory on that $120,000 check. He got a payment and he told the CFO that he lost the check. They reissued the check and he held on to the original check. So he didn't cash the same check twice, but he's basically splitting hairs that he got paid twice for the same thing. And he ended up cashing both checks.
I did hear
Even
that.
though there was a good bit of time in between, he's coming up with excuses as to reasons why
I did.
he
And you
cashed a check he already received a replacement for that
where you
he
said you
claimed
been
was
attacked by an
lost.
unknown assailant and described him.
I did.
So he's just going to
And you
use
heard
the
testimony
that he
from
forgot.
Ryan Kelly, where you again went into detail and described this attack from an unknown assailant.
I did.
And you heard the testimony about your interview on September 6th with law enforcement, in which you went into great detail and again described this unknown assailant.
I did.
And you heard the testimony, and in fact, the image was put in about how you sat down with a SLED sketch artist and spent a period of time with her going forward and creating an image of the supposed assailant.
I did sit down with it. I was in the hospital and they came in, sat down with me, asked me a bunch of questions. I answered their questions and
Yes, you did. You
it
sat
came
there,
it came up with a composite. Yes, sir.
sat there and answered their questions just as effortlessly and convincingly as you've been trying to do for the past 2 days. Isn't that correct?
No, sir, that's not true. In that hospital, I couldn't sit still. I was standing up. I was walking around. I was using the bathroom with the lady sitting right there. I was 2 days into not taking, 3 days into not taking pills like I had been. So no, it wasn't effortlessly. But I mean, I told him what I told him. I don't dispute that I lied.
It was all lies, though, is the point, correct?
It was.
I mean, you're saying withdrawals, but you still were able to pull off lies in great detail.
I
correct?
lied to them.
And the lie that you told of an unknown assailant was to try to make people think that the quote real bad guys were back again to finish the job. Isn't that true?
No, sir, that's not true.
That's not the effect that you intended that story to have. Did it have
Okay.
that effect on people that you knew?
I
Isn't
don't,
that the exact effect that it had?
I don't think there's many people that believe that. No, sir. I know the people that were, I mean, the people that were closest to me didn't believe that.
I think
So,
so
no, sir.
Buster's
Accountability is at
testimony,
your
I
door,
think,
Mr.
was
Murdaugh. Bad things happened.
he was believable.
Isn't
I
that
don't
true?
think he was lying for his dad. I'm not sure.
Accountability is
After
at
I
my
your
didn't-
doorstep.
Go ahead.
Bad
He seemed
things
like
happen.
he may not have known what was going on. You know what I mean? So
What
I
do you
think
mean
he
by bad
testified
things?
to what he knew.
June 7th happened. September 4th happened.
I don't believe that June the 7th happened because accountability issues were at my doorstep. Now, I do believe in September that I tried to get a man to help me kill myself because issues were at my doorstep.
Every time, or I'm sorry, for the first time in your life of privilege and prominence and wealth, when you were facing accountability, each time suddenly you became a victim and everyone ran to your aid. Isn't that true?
I disagree with that, but I mean, what you're
Shame for
you're-
you is an
you're-
extraordinary provocation. Isn't that true, Mr. Murdaugh?
Hang on, let me just finish this. You seem to be implying 2 dates, June the 7th and September, and talking about accountability issues. And I mean, to me, those two things are totally different. There were no accountability issues on my doorstep on June the 7th.
That's what you say,
And in September,
not what other people say.
I was trying to, well, no, I mean, been a lot of people in September, that wasn't designed to gain me sympathy. That was designed for me not to be here because I didn't want my son to have to deal with the wake of the things that I had done.
But that's not the story you told. The story that came out of your mouth right away was the story of you getting attacked by some unknown assailant while you were trying to change a tire and run flats.
Well,
That's the story that you told.
that is the story I told, but that's because the man who shot me did not shoot me that day as I intended. And I had to have a story as to how I got shot. So I lied.
So you lied. And you're saying that people in your family and your friends didn't instantly believe that whoever these 12-year-old marauders were back to finish the job.
You keep using
And
the
it
term
happened just
12-year-old
2 hours
marauders.
after you'd been confronted by Chris Wilson.
I think probably some people may have thought that when it first happened, but I think like Randy, Ronnie, Mark, those guys, I think they knew very quickly that this was not, I think they knew this was something that I'd done.
Shame for you, I asked this before, but shame for you is an extraordinary provocation, isn't it, Mr. Murdaugh?
Shame for me is an extraordinary provocation. I don't like to be shamed.
The prospect of humiliating the legacy is an extraordinary provocation to you, isn't it, Mr. Murdaugh?
What do you mean by an extraordinary provocation?
It affects you deeply. It's your biggest concern, is it not?
No, that's not my biggest concern.
You're a middle-aged man like me.
I'm 54 years old. I'm not sure. You look like you're in better shape than me, so.
I was actually a couple of years behind you in law school, but we never knew each other, did we?
I never knew you, no, sir.
Had a very successful career up until this point.
You know,
Simple question.
and the answer to that is no, Mr. Waters. I was an addict for more than 20 years.
All right, so making millions of dollars over a decade is not having a successful career. Is that what you're going to tell the jury?
No, that's not a successful career. When you
Okay, well, let me put it
no,
like this.
hang on. Let me just.
All right,
you
go
put
ahead.
this- you know, it may have been what you perceive as a successful career.
I
but,
mean, it's like,
you
don't
know,
be shamed
I was the
now.
one who
Like,
was
are
fighting
you
that.
kidding me?
You don't have a very high self-esteem when you're an addict. So I don't deem myself a success.
All right, would you agree that at least outwardly you're perceived as successful?
I made a bunch of money, if that's what you're wanting to get at.
No, I'm actually asking about the perception. You were perceived as a prominent,
I tried to
powerful
be.
lawyer.
How I was
You were
perceived,
president
I
of
don't
the
know.
trial
I
lawyers.
sure tried to be.
He will not admit to being
The life of
successful. Like,
possessing
I don't
authority.
know. Like, are you kidding
Possessing
me?
authority.
Yeah, we saw the badges. You just admitted of your prominence in the legal community.
I don't think that I lived a life of possessing authority. I never saw myself as that way.
You don't think you lived a life of privilege?
I think I was very privileged.
But as we move to June of 2021, you were suffering from a drug addiction.
Absolutely.
Your father was terminally ill.
When? And I mean,
As we move to June of 2021,
no, sir.
he was very ill.
He was very ill.
And you were coming to a point of financial crisis.
$50,000 a week too. I think,
I was
yeah, he's.
I was having financial issues like I'd had many times in the past.
Mr. Murdaugh, are you a family annihilator?
A family annihilator? You mean like, did I shoot my wife and my son?
Yes.
No. Would never hurt Maggie Murdaugh. I would never hurt Paul Murdaugh under any circumstances.
Say that.
Excuse me?
Say that, but you lied to Maggie, didn't you?
Ooh.
I did lie to Maggie
You lied to Paul.
sometimes.
You lied to your father.
I'm sure I did at some point.
Did you tell him all the stuff you'd been up to over the years before he died?
No, I didn't tell him.
Did you lie to your brothers?
About financial things.
Yes.
I would have lied to Randy at some point, I'm sure.
Did you lie to him about the last time you saw your wife and son alive?
I did.
Did you lie to their wives?
I'm sure I did.
Did you lie to Marion Proctor?
Yes.
Did you lie to Bart Proctor?
Yes.
Did you lie to the Brandstetters?
Yes.
Did you lie to your best friend, Chris Wilson?
Probably.
Did you lie to your other friend, Barrett Bulware, when you took his money?
No, sir.
No.
I didn't lie like I told you. I didn't lie directly to him. I lied to him by omission, like we talked about. I mean, I didn't talk to
He's
him. I didn't see him
awful.
at that time.
Did you lie to your law partners?
I did.
Did you lie to them about the kennels?
Some of them.
Did you lie to Mark Ball?
I did.
Did you lie to Ronnie Crosby?
According to what he said, I believe I did.
Did you lie to Johnny Parker?
I don't believe I ever discussed that with Johnny.
Did you lie to him about the finances when you borrowed that money in July of 2021?
I don't know if I lied to him about. I don't think Johnny asked me. I don't think I had to lie to Johnny about that. So I don't know.
Did you lie? Well, you certainly didn't disclose to him the truth when you borrowed that $250,000, did you?
I did not tell him what I was going to use it for.
I mean, didn't we say before that not telling the whole truth is the same as telling a lie?
Sure it is.
You don't think that's a lie, though?
I'm just saying, Mr. Waters, I'm not taking issue with that, but I don't even know that Johnny and I.
It's
Johnny
called being
loaned me money
deceptive.
numerous times. It wasn't any long sit-down discussion where Johnny wanted to know exactly what I was doing with it. That conversation would have been, I needed it. Johnny was always willing to help me, and that would have been the conversation. So on that specific event, did I lie to him? I don't know.
Yeah, he ended up being out $477,000, didn't he?
He ended up being out a lot of money.
And thank you for your qualifications as to that. Did you lie to Lee Cope?
I don't know. I don't
don't
know
know.
if Lee Cope was around when I said that or not.
Did you lie to Danny Henderson?
I did lie to Danny.
Did you lie to Jeannie Seconder?
I don't.
Yes, you
About
did.
finances? Yes, I did.
You didn't ever talk to her about the kennels?
No, I wouldn't think so.
Did you lie to Annette Griswold?
I did.
Did you lie to Christy Gerald, your other secretary or paralegal?
I don't believe she and I discussed. I would have at some point, I'm sure.
Did you lie to Michael Gunn?
I'm sure I did at some point, but I mean, Michael wasn't involved in any of this, so I don't know that any of this ever came up with Michael.
Did you lie to your clients? Did you lie to Pamela Pinckney?
I did.
Natasha Thomas?
I don't know that I dealt with Natasha, but I certainly lied about that.
Hakeem Pinckney?
Again, I don't know that I talked to Hakeem, but I certainly lied about that.
Arthur Badger?
I did.
The Plyler girls?
I'm not sure that I talked specifically to them, but I lied about that.
Dion Martin?
I lied to Dion.
Johnny Bush?
Yes.
Manuel Cristiani?
I didn't have any conversations with him, but I certainly lied about it.
Jamie and Risher?
Yes.
Randy Drawdy?
Yes.
Jordan Jinks?
Yes.
Mary Duncan?
Yes.
Adriana Hay?
Yes.
Angel Gary?
Yes.
Christopher Anderson?
Yes.
Elise Mallory?
Yes.
Thomas Moore?
No.
You never lied to him? You just took his money. You never had to actually lie to his face, is what you're saying?
He and I never had a conversation, but I did take that. I did take that money.
Did you lie to Tony Satterfield just a couple of months before June 7th? We saw the text. You want me to get it out?
Just remind me. There's been a lot. Just remind me what it was.
Gosh.
I'll tell you what's been marked as 463.
And I don't remember the exact date. So
That was in April of 2021. Is that right? Where you text him and tell him how hard you're working on the case, when in fact you had stolen millions of dollars from him? Tony Satterfield, who got up on the stand and told the jury about that?
I texted him on April 12th, so 5 weeks before June 7th.
Told him everything was okay. You're working hard, right? It's a complex case.
Yeah, I told him I was working on the case.
He was the son of your longtime housekeeper, Gloria.
I'm sorry?
He was the son of your longtime housekeeper, Gloria, who had served your family for many years.
That's correct.
And you stole millions from those boys.
I stole those funds.
And he and his family had started asking questions as we moved to June 7th. Didn't that happen?
No, I mean, there wasn't any rise in them asking questions. No, sir. I mean, he periodically checked in and asked me questions, but, you know, it had come out long before this, I believe in the Island packet, that there had been a settlement of $500,000. But, I mean, that had been months and months, if I'm not mistaken. And so I didn't notice any uptick in Tony asking questions, and I don't believe that there was any uptick in Tony asking questions before June the 7th.
So you just gratuitously out of the blue decided to lie to him and send that text? Or were there things going on externally that caused you to need to head him off at the pass before further questions started to be asked about money you couldn't pay back at that point in time?
Nah, I don't think there was anything. I mean, on April 21st, I don't know what external factors you're talking about.
Do you want to explain that one anymore?
Explain what?
Whatever you want.
I just want to answer your questions, Mr. Waters.
Lied to everyone about the side of the road, that people that came to stop to help and the ambulance folks and the 911 and Ryan Kelly and the composite sketch artist and all of them, correct?
I lied to a lot of people about that.
You know why people lie, Mr. Murdaugh? Because they know they've done something wrong.
For the most time, I do.
And you've been able to lie quickly and easily and convincingly if you think it'll save your skin for well over a decade. Isn't that true?
I have lied well over a decade.
And you want this jury to believe a story manufactured to fit the evidence that you brought forth just yesterday after hearing this trial's worth of testimony.
No, sir, that's not correct.
Mr. Murdaugh, we went through this for a while, but you remember at the beginning of your testimony, I asked you whether or not you agreed that trying to explain your presence on the kennel video was the most important part of your testimony before this jury. You remember that? And you said, oh, not the most important. I said, was it at least important? You recall that from yesterday?
Yeah, I recall you asking those questions, yes, sir.
And you agree it's important, don't you?
I agree that is an important component. But I think there's a lot of important components.
And you testified yesterday and during cross yesterday and cross today, kind of evolved on the fact of the factors that led you to decide to lie at some point during that interview with David Owen, correct?
I disagree with that. I don't think those factors have evolved. I mean, you've asked some more specific questions, but those factors are still the same factors. You may have asked questions and gained a little more detail, but those factors haven't changed.
But it was the dope paranoia. It was the fact that the deputy took your GSR. It was the fact that your law partners and Greg Alexander and the sheriff were telling you you needed to have a lawyer before you talked to police. It was the factor that you got in the car with Dave Owen and thought he was somebody else from some case 10 years ago, correct?
That believing David Owens was the person involved
Oh my God. It's like,
case
wow,
I'm
this
talking
guy
about.
is,
was one of the factors that caused me to distrust SLED.
All right. And then also you said that they started
general.
asking you about, in that first interview, about your relationship with Maggie and Paula. And that's one thing you mentioned as well,
And
correct?
that was certainly something that contributed to me having paranoid thinking.
but he was paranoid because of the drugs that he can't account for. He said, I don't know if Gig is still here, all the people in the medical community, he said he had a $50,000 a week drug habit on pills, that he was taking $50,000 worth of pills. And when the state asked him, how many pills were you taking a day? He couldn't account for it because there's no way humanly possible he could have taken that many pills. I wish they would have had an expert get up and say how many pills, like based on, let's say, this street value plus or minus, how many pills does that equal? And is it humanly possible for someone to take that amount of pills and to be sitting here coherent, running a multi-million dollar book of business in his law practice? Because if he's making $5, $6, $7 million on a good year, but even, let's say 1, 2, 3 million on a regular year, and he's also stealing money, is it possible that someone with such a appetite for opiates would be able to operate, function, and all of these things with ease? And even just his demeanor at this moment, that seems to be just someone who's caught, rather than someone who is looking like the fallout of a bad opiate addiction. Because we've all seen what people look like after they've gotten off addictions of many different kinds of drugs. You can see them on the street. You can see them, some of you might know them. You know what I mean? They're out here.
Playing the Daniel Green body cam video, 2026.
Oh yes, this is good. I think they played this before, but
They are dead on that.
Yes, sir. That's what it looks like.
Where are you now?
well, 60 pills, that's 2 pills a day, but he says he was an addict. He was taking plenty. If you want to see this body cam, I'll find the link and I'll drop it on the community post for you guys.
When was the last time you were here with them, or talked to them, or anything like that?
It was earlier tonight. I don't know the exact time, but
Okay.
I left. I was probably gone an hour and a half from my mom's, and I saw them about 45 minutes before that.
That was Sergeant Green, correct?
That was Sergeant Green.
And at that point in time, SLED was not there. No one had gotten GSR from you. Your law partners or Sheriff Hill were not there.
That's correct.
No one had asked you about your relationships. David Owen was not there,
That's correct.
but you still told the same lie. And all those reasons that you just gave this jury about the most important part of your testimony was a lie too. Isn't that true, Mr. Murdaugh?
I disagree with that.
Nothing further.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take a break now. Please do not discuss the case.
I wonder how long the break's going to be. I mean, someone said, I want to see where they're going with this. And I think where they were going with this is that they want to establish that he is a known, admitted, with ease and
90 minutes to
opportunity
his parents' house.
liar. So I think that they basically, that's what he was setting the groundwork for. All of the pleasantries of yesterday with the defense team of yes, sir, no, sir, I did this, I did that. My grandfather, my father, my da da da, my all, blah, 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 all of the pomp and circumstance, all of the things. They wanted to dial it back because the defense were able to kind of illustrate maybe a little bit of reasonable doubt because this is a circumstantial case. What is a circumstantial case? A case that maybe doesn't have, anyone who's legal in the, you're welcome to pop in because I'm not an attorney, but circumstantial case is basically a case built on reasonable belief that this person had something to do with the crime, that they had space and opportunity. In this particular case, the guns that were potentially used to kill Maggie and Paul were guns that could have come from this property. They were guns that were in the possession of this family, right? And they're guns that are also missing. He was there. He lied about being there. GPS, telemetry data from the car. There's data. There's all different kinds of evidence. There's phone records. There's conversations. There's conflicts. There's lots of different things for the law enforcement to stop their investigation at this person rather than continuing to look at other people. The district attorneys must have felt confident that at that time, based on what they saw, based on what they experienced, they had someone in the midst who appeared to be who appeared to be the one. But what they don't have is the guns. They don't have, fingerprints on a gun. They don't have a lot of different. There was blood. I'm not sure how old they said the blood was. Was it fresh blood? But it appeared to be Maggie's blood on the steering wheel in the Suburban. Based on the story he told, maybe that blood shouldn't have been there. It's possible it could have been there anyway, just because Maggie did drive the car. We can cut our fingers, break a nail, any of those reasons why blood could be there. But if it was fresh blood, well, how did that get there? And if he put it there, how did he put it there when he was clean as a whistle when the police came to the scene? The clothes he had on were not the clothes that he was arrested in. He had changed his clothes. He'd taken a shower. He'd done, it's just lots of different things. So I think that basically this was the opportunity for the state to basically say, hey, you know what? We're not buying your story. We're not buying your story. And based on your own admissions of lying, I think he's telling the jury basically, if you can't believe anything this man says, he's lied to. I wish he would have asked. Did I miss it? Did he ask? Did he lie to Buster? Because at the end of the day, he lied to everyone. So the laundry list of people that they were able to have him admit that he lied to and put people in jeopardy for their licenses, their business, all of these things, he created situations to where he's got people who are actually almost committing crimes because he's looping them in to his situations to where people are going to have to be able to say, well, I didn't know. And, and I think he probably had to keep a lot of this information. This guy had a lot of balls in the air, and I don't feel sorry for him in the least because he created this situation for himself. But he did a lot to a lot of people that people have to account for of what they knew and what they did not know. And it's very unfortunate. So they're still on break. This is what I'm gonna do. I did pull up the body cam footage. Let me share this screen instead. And when I see them come back, we'll flip screens. But in case some of you have seen it, some of you have not. But let's get into it. This is when the sheriff or the deputy, I'm not sure which one. This is when they arrived to the scene, and this is Alex telling his story. So this is a little bit of what they just played. They didn't show the footage, but let's get into it. So here's the sheriff getting out. These are the kennels and all of that. I guess that's where they.
717 scene is secured at a Whiskey Fox, Whiskey Mike, both gunshot wounds to the head.
So in case you didn't know, Whiskey Fox and Whiskey Mike. So WF and WM, that's white male, white female. Whiskey male, Whiskey Fox is code for white male, white female.
Okay, yes, sir. I see that. Okay. This is your wife and son?
And son.
Okay.
It's bad. It's bad. Check the pulses.
Yes, sir. This is the firearm you brought from inside the house?
He said he touched them. He tried to turn them over.
Story. My son was in a boat wreck a few months back. He's been getting threats. Most of it's been benign stuff we didn't take serious.
They're laying there dead, and he's like, "It's a long story, guys." Like, what?
Okay. He's been getting like punched. I know that's somebody. I know that's what it is.
Okay. When did you get home? Right when you called, or did you go to the house first? Where is the house?
I came to the house first. My mom has late stages Alzheimer's, and my dad is in the hospital. Okay. I left. I don't know what time. I can go back on my phone and tell you the exact times. Did you check? Okay.
Did I check what?
Did you check them?
We got medical guys that are that's.
Did you see him check them?
What are they doing? Can they hurry?
They are. Yes, sir. That gentleman that was out here already, he's one of the battalion chiefs. Okay.
I don't know what's going on with this.
How did you pull up? You from back there?
I went to the house and they weren't home, which was odd. I tried to call.
Okay.
And then I knew they had been down here before I left to go to my mom.
Okay.
And so that is loaded.
Okay.
You might want to unload it. But
Is this the only firearm with you? This is the only one, or is there any more in the truck?
I believe that's it.
You think that's the only one?
Okay. I'm 99%.
Do you normally have any other firearms in your vehicle?
I don't, but occasionally
there's still a break.
Occasionally there's a pistol in there.
Okay. Just wait right here for me for a second, okay?
So he's here. This is the firearm that when he called 911 and they told him not to go to the house, not to stay at the scene and don't get a firearm. He goes, gets a firearm, and then this firearm that they ended up taking, they when they tested it, it was clean. Like no fingerprints, no nothing. Like, why would you clean off this gun?
They are dead, aren't they?
Yes, sir. That's what it looks like.
So these are all the steps. Remember they said he took a bunch of steps. I'm assuming that these are him walking back and forth, pacing around, doing the fool.
The police are here now. The police are here now. That's my brother.
Okay. When was the last time you were here with them? or talked to them or anything like that?
It was earlier tonight. I don't know the exact time, but
Okay.
I left. I was probably gone an hour and a half from my mom's, and I saw them about 45 minutes before that.
Okay.
I rode around with Paul for 2 hours this afternoon.
I mean, all of this,
That's your son, Paul?
it been gone for an hour and a half. I was here for 45 minutes plus
Yes, sir.
2
They've already checked.
hours.
They did
He had
check them.
just been there less than an hour before.
Yes, sir. That's
He
what
was
it
there an hour before. He was on Snapchat. His son caught him on Snapchat. Okay? So it's like, why are you lying at the time that the sheriffs are getting there and you were literally just there?
All her parents.
Your son got you in the kennel on
what's her name?
Snapchat. I'm sorry. Like,
name's
that
Maggie
is
Murdaugh.
ridiculous. So for them
Margaret
to bring it back to
Branstetter
this was
Murdaugh.
definitely very important. I mean, at the end of
You
the
doing?
day,
What's her birthday?
9,
this
15,
is like
68.
should be the most
Okay, and
truest
what's your
telling
son's
of the
first name?
story, and
You said Paul?
Paul Terry Murdaugh.
he's lying.
And what's his birthday?
Jason, do you have anybody
4.
coming through town that could stop and pick up that tent? I see lighting off in the distance.
What are they covering them up?
I got some getting dressed now, Sheriff. I'll have somebody stop and grab it.
Tell them they don't have to do that. They don't need to. Preserve what we can.
653. Where's it at? I'm in town.
I should try to be Delta 8 because he's going to be the only one that's got access.
What's
to where
Paul's
it is
birthday?
right now.
Got it.
April 14th, 1999, sir.
Put it up as wide as you can. That's fine. You said 99?
Sir?
He was born in 99?
He was born April 14th, 1999.
Okay. What's your first name, sir?
My name
I
is
guess
Alex
they're still on a
Richard
break. I guess
Alexander
they're going to try to
Murdaugh.
figure out what they need to do.
Richard Alexander Murdaugh?
You familiar with the location?
I mean, it's really sad and it's inconceivable, you know, for most people to think of a husband killing his wife and a father killing his son. But
It's what I'm thinking.
Come around the truck.
I don't
and then
know.
go to the
There's
building.
why are you?
Come around the truck. and
You're
then-
sitting here lying at this moment.
Yes.
You're sitting here with different clothes. You're telling scenarios. None of it's true. And then now you're telling another story. Okay, I was at the kennel, but yeah, I lied. You lied from the very beginning. You tried to say you lied when you got into the officer's vehicle for your interrogation, but you lied at the scene. It's
go over to that corner of
like,
the building.
man, don't you remember? They've got you on body cam.
I'm almost to you. Let me see what we have first and whether or not we're going to handle that part or not.
I see quite a few tire tracks in here. Were any of these you going in and out?
No, I came in here and I left one time and I came back.
Okay.
The rest of them, maybe
Okay.
from earlier, but
Okay.
only 2 are mine.
Did you go out this way at all?
No.
Well, it's right.
Hey, stay here. Got a whole bunch of stuff right there. I don't want to disturb.
No, that's why I'm trying to get the door so we can kind of get around that way.
Your best way is probably going to be back through those rocks because we can't get any tracks off those rocks anymore.
We'll go back around the other way we just came.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep, you have names or anything for him?
Yes.
Okay, I'll get that in a little bit. Then. That's
Okay.
fine.
So live, laugh, love. I think you were talking about when he was in the SUV interrogation room. I think he was over it. He was, look, in his mind, if he's the murderer, let's think about it this way. In the mind of somebody who is
What unit's 23
killed
on
his family or killed someone because there was a problem, the problem's now gone. So his stress is over. Now it's just the home stretch of perpetuating the lie, right? So because he's been able to do this successfully for a long time, he's probably like cool as a damn cucumber.
This shed thing.
So
You ain't come through Brick Hollow.
worried about something that has nothing to do with, because he's silly. Did we talk about the interior? Look, he's just like the prosecutor said, he's been extended a lot of privilege and a lot of leeway to be able to wreak havoc across the community. And unfortunately, for the people that do follow the law and the people who do take their jobs seriously and the community seriously and respect their the power that they have, he's took that and kind of like flushed it down the toilet. So hopefully this will be, this is going to be a good check and balance for the community to be able to move forward. And what was done in the dark now has come to the light, and he's not going to be able to get away with this, clearly, because if it's not one thing, it's going to be another. Fran, is his other son supporting his father? He's right there in the audience. Yeah, he testified. I don't think he was like, my father's. I can't look. I need to go rewatch it. Maybe we can watch that. I did not see all of Buster's testimony. I did watch some of it. And I don't know if they asked him, do you think your father killed your mother? Do you think your father killed your brother? If they did that, I don't know. I'm going to watch it tonight, and I will get back with you guys, because that's important testimony now. So I will get into that. So he's there every day, and he testified for the defense. So that should tell you something. He's not testifying for the state. He didn't seem to be a reluctant witness. He answered the question. So I'm gonna pull that up and rewatch that. They're still on a break right now, so we'll come back in just a bit. He needed to use his theater major and do the best performance possible at this time. This was his. Clearly, he was not convincing, because soon after this happened, he already had law enforcement interviewing him, doing, I guess it's probably standard GFR test, just to make sure he did have a firearm. Right there, what's clouded out, obviously, those are the dead bodies.
The gentleman in the white shirt is the husband of her, father of him. That is Paul Murdaugh. This is his mother.
Okay, guys, they're back. Hold on.
Guy in a boating accident.
I dropped the link in the chat for that video that we were just watching. I'll share it. You guys can go back and watch it. I'll find Buster's testimony as well, so you guys can watch it and we can talk about it. I already linked the Netflix, so just scroll through and check it out on Real Talk Bougie. That's where it is. Most of that stuff is over there on the community posts. Okay.
So
All right, thank you. Redirect.
thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Murdaugh, we spent a long time yesterday and a fair amount of time today talking about financial misdeeds.
Yes, sir.
Have you been criminally charged for those financial crimes?
I have been.
You have pending charges
I
against.
do.
You were asked specifically about $792,000 in Ferris fees that you diverted from the law firm. Do you recall that?
Yes, sir.
Oh.
I am an addict.
You are an addict. And did you repeatedly lie to those you love to cover up your addiction?
I did.
And were you concerned that you would be exposed if you didn't continue to lie about your conduct?
I did.
There's some specific things you were asked about, which I'd like to go over. One thing you had referred to a text message that you'd seen later on between Maggie and Blanca. Do you recall that?
I do.
And it's in the evidence as Defendant's Exhibit 54. And Doug, if you could pull that up, please, sir. And if you could highlight the Blanca text. Is this the text message you're referring to?
It is.
And I'll just read it. It says, TY, that's thank you. It says, TY, I'm waiting at Dr. Alex wants me to come home. I had to leave door open at Edisto, but trust Mexicans to shut a lot for me. His dad is back in the hospital. The last doctor claims not cancer, it pneumonia. And then she has some faces. Alex is about to die. Hope he doesn't go down there to sleep. Alex needs to take care of himself as well. Is that the text message you're referring to?
Yes, sir.
Trust
And did
Mexicans
share
to
this
shut
message
and
with
lock
you
door
after
for
Maggie
me. He
was
trusted the
murdered?
Mexicans.
Blanca
Is
first,
he's a real
ultimately, she shared that with me. She
he's a
first
real
told me
piece of work,
that,
this
you know,
guy.
Maggie was worried about me, how much she loved
Bianca
me, and that she
didn't
was
have a
worried about
name. He
me,
called her
and then
Mexicans.
texted her.
Okay.
Okay.
He referred to her by her nationality and not her name.
Now you were asked, you can take it down, Doug. You were asked questions about conversations around the dinner table on the 7th about, well, didn't eat at the table, but around while you were eating dinner about Paul's health. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yes, that's racist. I mean, it's at least callous. I mean, people have names, you know.
179, 180.
He's an asshole,
And ask
clearly.
if you can identify these two.
I can.
And what are they?
It's text from let's see, it's a text from Paw to me on May the 30th.
And then and what's 180? Exhibit 180 behind it.
That's a picture of Paw's feet.
Your Honor, would move defendants exhibits 179, 180 into evidence at this time without objection, I believe.
Without objection, Your Honor.
Submitted.
Well, do you have 179 or we've got, you can let me put it on the Elmo. Okay. Alex, do these, this text message refer to Paul's feet swelling?
They do.
So if you'll do, you can pull it up, like go up a little more so we can read it. And it says, from Paul, and that phone number, is that your phone number?
That is, this is my phone number, 1227. My feet swole up. It has something to do with my blood pressure. Get me an appointment as soon as it's convenient.
And what's the date of this?
May the 30th.
2021, right?
Yes, sir.
And if, Doug, if you'll show the picture, I believe this is a blow up of the picture that's in this exhibit 180. Can you pull out? Was that a picture of that Paul had sent you of his feet swelling up?
It is.
I mean,
Is
it
this what
might have
y'all
been the
discussed,
alcohol.
you know, when you're eating dinner?
Yes.
Okay.
Along with many other times.
You'd also, you were asked questions about your dad's condition and whether he was terminal or not. Do you remember that?
I do remember questions about him.
Okay, and gosh, Doug, I think it's the extended timeline. Is it states 530? Is that the right number? States 520. If you'll pull it up, please. It's already in the evidence. And if you'll go to page 14. And if you'll blow up the entry at 142.54 at the bottom of the page. Alex, is this a text that you and we'll, do you recall this is the text that you and other family members received about your father's condition?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and it says, Daddy was just seen by the pulmonologist in Savannah. His opinion is dramatically different from the other doctors. He thinks Daddy has pneumonia and needs to be hospitalized to be treated for pneumonia. He thinks there could be an obstruction, but is more confident that it is all or mostly pneumonia. Daddy is being admitted to Candler St. Joseph Hospital now. He will have a study done to see whether or not there is an obstruction, and his treatment will be tailored accordingly. Right now, his pulmonologist does not. Go to the next page. Does not believe that he'll be getting radiation treatment. And in fact, the pulmonologist says that the palliative radiation treatment to try to open the airway is a Hail Mary. In his opinion, would most likely not work. Then it goes on to say, if he is right, and this is pneumonia, is much more treatable and can certainly give the immunotherapy a chance to work. Is that what you're referring to?
That's the text I was talking about that came when talking to Jeannie Seconder.
Okay. And and this wasn't a terminal diagnosis on the 7th, was it?
Not on the 7th. That was actually a little bit of positive news.
Okay.
That was short-lived, but it was positive at the time.
You can take that down for now, Doug. But stay on that exhibit. Al, you were asking, if you'll go to page 46, please, the same exhibit, 520. Page 46. And if you'll highlight and blow out the 90218, Alec Murdaugh's iPhone shows Now, Alec, do you remember being asked about these steps, 283 steps traveled during this period of time?
I do.
And I think you testified your belief was you're just getting ready to leave to go to your mom's house. Is that right?
That's correct. I mean, that would have been the time I was right before I left to go there.
And you were, looks like you had made some phone calls during this period of time, correct?
Yes, the record show.
Alec, did you have Maggie's phone with you at any time between 9:02 and 9:06?
I didn't have Maggie's phone with me anytime that night.
And Doug, if you'll go to page 45, please. If you go to the entry at 8:53:15 to 8:55:32. What am I missing? Can you go, you're missing it. Go up one more entry, please. The one that records steps, please. And then take it all the way to the bottom, Doug. Thank you. This is in evidence. And this is Agent Rudowski's timeline, and it says Maggie Murdaugh's phone, iPhone shows 59 steps traveled between 8:53:15 and 8:55:32. Were you walking with Maggie Murdaugh's phone during that period of time?
I wasn't walking with Maggie's phone anytime that night.
And if you'll look at Agent Rudowski's entries, is there entry of her phone showing steps during any time between 9:02 and 9:06? Do you see any on this page from 8:53 to 8:55?
No, sir.
If you'll turn the next page, page 46. Going down to
He sure can answer yes and no to his attorney,
recording of
but everything for the
phone
state is like,
steps,
well, I'm not sure what you mean by
phone
that.
recording
If you're
steps.
asking Boo Boo and Bebe,
data
well,
we now
maybe.
have
I'm
from
not
Maggie's
sure. I'm not
phone
gonna.
at any point
I'm
in
not
time
gonna.
up to
I'm not gonna
9:02.
question that if
No,
you say
sir.
so.
And had you repeatedly asked SLED to get the data from the OnStar, from the cell phones, to evaluate whether your phone and Maggie's phone were ever moving at the same time? You made that multiple requests.
I repeatedly asked David Owens about that information.
And when you asked that question, were you aware that Maggie's phone had been located, down the road a mile half a mile or more? Is that right?
Yeah, I knew where her phone had been located.
And why was it important to you to get that information?
Because I knew that whoever had done this to them had Maggie's phone. And I knew that my phone and Maggie's phone and my car were never together. At any point in time.
Sure. Now, you have given inaccurate times in many statements to law enforcement in this case, have you not?
I did.
And we reviewed some of those in your direct examination. One was Paul getting to Moselle around 5 p.m. Do you remember that?
I do.
Were you lying to Agent Owens or anybody when you said Paul got there at 5 p.m.?
No, I wasn't lying to him. I thought that at the time.
And when you
Most of the times a lot of the times when I gave times, I qualified them and say, but, you know, you can look at this. I pointed them to my office, to the call log, like, to the key card like we talked about, or my phone, or my own star.
And when you told the agents that you thought you got to the office 8:30, 9 o'clock on that morning of June 7th, well, you were wrong, right?
I was wrong.
Were you lying?
No, I wasn't lying.
And when Deputy Green drove up and you had the first encounter with him, I believe you told him that you had been gone to your mom's house for an hour and a half. Is that right? We just heard it.
The last one,
Yes, sir.
yeah, hour and a half. I think that is what I told him.
Hour and a half. And that the last time you saw Maggie and Paul was 45 minutes before that.
Yeah, that's what I said.
And when you spoke to Deputy Green, it was about, I think the records show they didn't arrive on the scene until 10:22 or something like that. Is that right?
That sounds right. I mean, I think that's what the records show. That sounds right.
And that were you lying to Deputy Green when you told him what time, how long you thought you'd been at your mother's and the last time you saw Maggie and Paul?
No, sir, I wasn't lying to him.
Were you trying to mislead him in any way?
No, sir, not when Mr. Green got there.
Now, you've admitted the first few questions that I asked you yesterday and multiple times today that you lied to Agent Owen and Deputy Rutland and Agent Owen and Agent Croft, and on a couple occasions about your whereabouts following dinner, correct?
I did lie to them, as we discussed repeatedly.
And you've explained that it was this addiction, opioid-induced paranoia you just couldn't shake. Is that right?
That's right. You know, like I said, there's certain things, anything that make you paranoid, but I could get over it really quickly. But that night, I didn't.
And you had a bag of pills in your pocket, did you not?
I did.
And when you got down to the kennels, we're not going to repeat all that, but I mean, did you ever see anybody down there? Anybody else?
No, there was nobody. There wasn't anybody down there when I was there.
And did you believe that the information, whether you were there or not there, would advance their investigation in any way?
No, I didn't. I didn't think that.
And why didn't you think that?
Because they were fine and doing good when I left there.
Did on the 911 call, do you remember that the call first went to Hampton?
I don't remember that, but I know that now.
And what we played here in the court in your testimony was the Colleton County handoff. Do you recall that?
I do recall that.
Okay.
I think at some point the part in Hampton might have gotten played too, didn't it? But I know the main part was the Colleton
Right.
part. But it was like a minute into the call.
But initially it went to Hampton, then subsequently it was transferred to Colleton.
That's right.
And then a minute or so into the Colleton call, you said, "I've been up to it now." You remember that?
I do remember saying that. I remember hearing it. I don't remember saying that, but I remember hearing it.
Okay.
And that is accurate. And by up to it, at that point, I had gone all the way up to them at that point. When I first got out, I was close, but I wasn't right at them, I don't think.
Right. You were asked about the roadside shooting, and your intent was to end your life that day, was it not?
It was, no question.
And you were shot but not killed. And then you made up a lie to law enforcement about what happened, right?
That's correct.
Were you trying to protect Curtis Eddie Smith by doing that?
Was I trying to protect Curtis Eddie Smith?
Yes.
I mean, I don't know exactly. It all had to come together so quick. I don't know that I was trying to protect Curtis Eddie Smith. I may have been, but it was just, you know, I wasn't supposed to be there. And then I was.
When you say I wasn't supposed to be there, what do you mean by that?
I intended for him to, I mean, I intended to be gone. I intended for him to shoot me, and I intended to be gone. And the one thing, my main concern at that point was that I did not want Buster. I did not want Buster knowing that I had tried to do that.
Okay.
That was my motivation in telling that story.
I see. Did you eventually voluntarily convey to Agent Kelly and others that that was a fabrication?
I did. After, I don't know, a few days in detox, when I finally got over those initial, just where I could just function, I think I told you first, then I think I told Buster, then I think I told Randy and John, and y'all arranged either the next day or 2 days later to come, and we called Ryan Kelly.
Well, you've lied to your family over many years, have you not?
I lied to my family about my addiction.
And you hid from them you were stealing client money, did you not?
Oh, I never, they didn't know anything about that.
And you've lied to your law partners about financial dealings and perhaps your addiction?
Yes.
And you've lied to law enforcement about not going down to the kennels after dinner, but eating dinner and taking a nap. Did you not?
I did.
Alec, did you murder Maggie?
I would never hurt Maggie.
Did you murder Paul?
I would never hurt Paul. If I was under the pressure that they're talking about here, I can promise you I would hurt myself before I would hurt one of them. Without a doubt.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Orders.
Please, court. You said that you were concerned when you talked to David Owen about the bag of pills in your pocket, correct?
I mean, no, sir, I'm not saying that I was concerned about that. I don't think I told you I was concerned about that. I'm just telling you that was a fact. I had a bag of pills in my pocket, and that was one of the things, that was one of the many things that came together that night.
And you're trying to tell this jury that as a reasonable husband and father in this situation, concern about a bag of pills in your pocket was more important to you then telling law enforcement and narrowing the time when you last saw your wife and son alive. That's what you want to convince this jury of?
No, sir, because, I mean, the bag of pills in my pocket was not what I was concerned about sitting in there. It was, as I said, it was one of the many things that was going on. But I wasn't sitting there worried about those pills in my pocket.
You were asked about requesting the phone and automobile data. And that was because as a prosecutor and a lawyer, you had been manufacturing an alibi to cover your tracks.
No, sir, that's absolutely wrong.
You admit you were wrong about a lot of things in what you told law enforcement about June 7th, correct?
I was wrong about things. Some things.
You were asked whether or not you voluntarily confessed to Agent Kelly, but you only did so after being confronted with undeniable information, correct?
No, sir, that's not correct at all. What I was told is that, and I believe this came from Randy, what I was told is that SLED had come up with some information that seemed like it was consistent with my story, and they needed me to verify some things, is what they told me. And, you know, I knew that resources had already been wasted. I didn't want them wasting any more resources. And I told them the truth, but there wasn't any, nobody had presented me with any evidence.
And you just testified that you told Jim Griffin first, correct?
I believe that I told Jim Griffin first.
But at that time, you didn't say anything about those kennels, did you?
To Jim Griffin at that
Correct.
time? No, sir, I didn't.
When you testified on direct yesterday and you were asked about leaving the kennels with your new story in light of the evidence that's been presented in this trial, your words were, "I got out of there," correct?
I believe that's what I said. Yes, sir.
And you also said during your testimony on cross-examination that you hurt the ones you love the most, didn't you?
I did say that.
Thank you. Nothing further.
In saying that, Mr. Waters, I just want to explain that answer. And he just asked me a question about what I said, and then I was going to explain why I said it.
All right.
As I told you earlier, you're implying to this jury and to me that was me talking about hurting Maggie and Paul. And that's not what that was. What that was is me saying, I know I hurt my brother, my partners, my clients, many of whom I told you I loved, all of whom I cared for. And that's what that was when I'm talking about how my misdeeds, how I hurt the people worst were the ones I loved the most.
I just asked you what you said, correct, Mr. Murdaugh?
You did ask me what I said, but in asking me that, you're putting an implication on there that I am explaining.
I just asked you what you said.
Okay, yes, sir.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Step down.
It's such a noticeable difference between how he testifies for his attorney and how he testifies for the
I'll stand for
state.
a moment while
And
counsel approach.
the unfortunate part is that this is the court that his grandfather, great grandfather, father managed. His family were the solicitor, and just such disrespect and lack of regard for, and also had a badge as a deputy, assistant deputy, whatever. He was a deputy solicitor, and the fact that
Lied repeatedly to law enforcement, and he said
he's so nasty. Okay, so they're taking a sidebar. Anyway, just so nasty and such a lack of regard for the law, for someone who practiced the law, for somebody who tried cases. He wasn't active in the solicitor's office. He was given a badge just to have because he could spend time with his dad. That's what he said. Just given a lot of privilege and opportunity. And this guy is so disrespectful to the person who actually his father would have been in that seat. That person that he's talking to is in the same role as his father. So just ridiculous. But anyway, I don't know if they're coming back or not. Looks like they are on they've gone to another break. I don't know what's happening here, if they're resting, if they're bringing more people. Oh, they're back. Hold on one second. Let's see what they have to say.
Well, we've come to the end of this week, and we will adjourn now and resume at 9:30 Monday morning. Have a great weekend. Do not discuss the case or allow yourself to be exposed to any information concerning the case. And we'll see you Monday morning. Have a great weekend. Jury is excused.
I don't know if they're going to have any conversations after, so we'll wait and see just in case they don't dip out. But yeah, I don't know who they're calling on Monday, but I'll be watching. If something compelling happens, we can watch together. But
Everyone be seated, please.
okay, is there still stuff going on? Ooh, this is the juicy stuff after the jury goes.
Regarding scheduling, first up Monday morning, Mr. Harpootlian.
Your Honor, we anticipate having 4 witnesses on Monday. They would probably average an hour apiece. So I would suspect by lunchtime we would be, no?
Early afternoon.
Early afternoon, I'm told by Mr. Griffin, resting our case. And of course, Mr. Waters indicated he'll have 1 or 2 reply witnesses.
Couple right now, Your Honor. Obviously, we need to assess that when they complete their case, but it would not be lengthy.
Question, what day next week do we do argument and charge?
Well, it's all unpredictable. As we can see from today, it's pretty unpredictable.
I'm guessing. I'd hope Tuesday. I don't think that's going to be, if they have any reply witnesses. Wednesday would be more of a target. I'm just saying a target date that we can begin thinking about in terms of argument and charge. To that end, are you going to set a time limit on arguments, or are you going to just let us do whatever we want?
I do not set time limits on argument.
With that in mind, Mr. Griffin and I mean, they get 2 arguments. We perhaps would like to split our final argument, which we think with 4 weeks of testimony in there, it's going to be difficult for one person to digest all of that. There's no problem with that, is there?
All right. I would object to that. I think Your Honor's rules and general practices consistent with one counsel handling argument.
Your Honor, I've seen it done both ways, and 4 weeks of testimony, I think it's very difficult for one person. And we only get 1 argument.
I've never done it, and I'm not inclined to do it. I'll look it over and consider it, but I'm not inclined to allow the defense to split closing arguments.
We would agree to a 2-hour limit. Does that maybe incentivize to look at this?
We'll look at it. I'm not inclined to do it. It's unprecedented, as far as I know, in the state of South Carolina. Except perhaps where you've been able to convince someone to the contrary.
I've actually objected to it when I was on his side of the courtroom.
Well, we have some days to think about that. Regarding closing arguments, I think we emailed you all a few days ago concerning any requested charge or charges that you might have.
This weekend, if that's acceptable.
We'll try to do that, Your Honor. We're preparing witnesses. How about Monday night?
That's fine.
Okay.
Anything else before we adjourn?
Nothing from the state, Your Honor.
Nothing from the defense, Your Honor.
Okay, 4:49. We are adjourning for the weekend.
Okay, guys. Another fun day of testimony. If there's something interesting or compelling, I may come live with it. I don't know. It just depends on how my day goes. But I've spent the last 2 days doing this, but I would have been watching it anyway, just to be quite honest. Anyway, so okay, let's recap just a little bit of what we know. I shared with you guys the link to the dash cam. I'm gonna pop it in here one more time. If you're on the replay, you haven't seen the dash cam footage of when the police, the sheriff's department, trooper, I don't think it was state troopers or anything like that, but when the local, I would probably say sheriffs, because I don't think they lived in quote unquote a city. They were kind of like in the county. Clearly they're in the country. So I think these were probably more so like a county sheriff. Anyway, when they arrived on the scene, so that's what we were just watching kind of in the last break, like an hour ago. As you can see right here, he is being escorted out by the police, by the sheriffs. They're taking him back to his cell. That's where the jury sits. So you can see that right there. So when he's sitting there talking, we can see a little bit more of the layout of the courtroom now. And they're telling us what time it is. It's time to go home. Okay. So it's 10:04. They said 9:30 on Monday. I don't think Alex is coming back. I'll find Buster's testimony. If you guys want to go back through some of the testimony, we can go back through some of that next week, like some bits and pieces. The CFO of the law firm was quite compelling. The caregiver was quite compelling. The lady who was taking care of the mom, and the housekeeper who he had a $4 million policy on that he stole most or all of the money, is it Satterfield? Bianca, the one that he referred to in the text messages as the Mexican. Gosh, just the list goes on. Cousin Eddie, there's so many people. Cousin Eddie hadn't testified, but Buster did. You guys drop your questions if you're on the replay back, later. But in any case, guys, this was so much fun. I really enjoyed watch partying with you guys. I dropped the link to the Netflix special, so maybe check that out and we'll regroup sometime next week. I still owe you guys on this channel to kind of reset on goals for the month of February. So if you've been working on your goals, you have some exciting news about what you've been doing so far for 2023 and things are moving right along, or if you're stuck, I guess we probably need to talk about it. So tomorrow morning, over some coffee and a quick conversation about just making sure, that if there's something that you're trying to accomplish and you are working towards it, that that's what's happening. And if you're stuck, getting unstuck, right? Okay, guys, I hope that you have a good afternoon. Thank you so much. Oops. Thank you so much for joining me today. This was fun. And we'll do it again, see what's popping off next week. And if we'll come back to court, I think if the jury comes in, they rest their cases sometime next week, then, we will be here for closing arguments. I think definitely I can commit to closing arguments. And, when the jury returns their verdict next week, also expect that Tory Lanez is going to be sentenced. That's super interesting. I want to see what he gets, and that's going to be on the 28th. So no matter what, we'll talk about it. Anyway, guys, I'm going to let you guys go. Have a great afternoon. I'll see you guys next time.